For somebody listening that maybe has not grown up around happy people, doesn't really know if happiness is possible or even kind of what it feels like, where do you even begin if you don't know what happiness looks like or feels like or how to achieve it?
Yeah. You know, I always tell my students that the best self-help books are biographies. Why? Because biographies give us, the deep understanding of what a happy life or a miserable or a successful life looks like. And one of my favorite biographies is Mahatma Gandhi's. The subtitle of his autobiography is My Experiments with Truth. It's not my finding truth. It's not the ultimate truth. It's my experiments with truth. And that, for me, is a guiding mantra. And I think it ought to be for many of us, because it is very much about experimentation. It's about trying things out. It's about trying different ways of being, living, and doing. And through experimentation, and if we're not afraid of experimenting, of trying, and if we're not afraid of falling down, then we'll get better. Then we'll grow. Then we will actually become happier, with an emphasis on happier. What do I mean by that? See, many people ask me, okay, Tal, you've been in this business for 30 years. 30 years ago, you embarked on this journey. Are you finally happy today?
Are you?
Good question. My answer is, I don't know.
What? That is not acceptable, Tal.
I'm sorry.
You're supposed to be here and tell us to be happy, how to be happy. You don't know if you're happy?
I'm here to tell you how to be happier, not happy. Because I don't know what being happy is or means, in the sense that I don't think there is a binary 0-1. Okay, so yesterday I was unhappy. Today I'm happy. Rather than a binary 0-1, it is a continuum. So I can certainly tell you that I'm a lot happier today than I was 30 years ago. But I hope that 5 years from now, I'll be happier than I am today.
How will you know?
How do I know that I will be happier? Or how do I know how to measure that
Both.
I'm both?
I know this is a kind of a basic question, but happiness eludes so many people. There are so many people that write in about feeling stuck or a lack of purpose or devastated with grief, that I know when you look in the rearview mirror, you can say, oh, I'm happier than I was 10 years ago. I feel in your definition that you've presented to us that you really like a sense of wholeness, right? An access to it. But for somebody that really feels like, whether it's because of depression or they're just been miserable their whole life or their life has been really hard.
Yeah. So I would go for, small changes.
Okay.
The Kaizen change that the Japanese talk about, which is, how can I become 1% happier? Not how can I become happy? Not how can I, find, the answer? Just how can I become 1% happier? And then if you ask this question and look at the 5 Spire elements, and you can look at all 5 and you can look at one of them. How can I introduce a small change? Experiment with a small truth. And then see how that works. And then if it does, great, do more of it. If it doesn't, try something else. But the key is to continue moving, because as we know, one of the major characteristics of depression is helplessness, which means doing nothing. So counter that with doing something. And again, that something doesn't have to be major. One of the things that I'm working on a lot now is how small changes can make a big difference.
Yeah.
When consistently applied. And I know that you are, doing work in that area as well. When you talk about, take that 1 minute to breathe. And those small changes make a big difference. And, I've coined a term. So I don't know if you're familiar with the term MVP, not from sports, from business. MVP, minimum viable product. Now, this is something a company, brings out as sort of a beta version, a test case. And, it's not perfect. It's not ready. It's not ideal, but it's good enough. So based on this MVP, minimum viable product idea, I coined the term MVI, minimum viable intervention. Minimum viable intervention, these are the small changes that you can introduce that actually make a difference over time. And this is what I would urge, the MVIs is what I would urge that someone who's feeling stuck or down or someone who just lacks motivation introduces in their lives.
Okay.
What are these MVIs? For example, you know what? Actually, let me go over the SPIRE elements and provide an MVI for each one.
I love you. Yes.
All right. So, spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being is about purpose and presence.
Okay.
Let's say we, for 1 minute, breathe deeply, focusing on the air going in and out. That's meditation. You know, it's not 30 minutes, but it's 1 minute. And we know, and there's a lot of research showing that 1 minute can make a huge difference. You know, there are so many things we can do in 1 minute while being present. And that will enhance, and we know that, and there's a lot of data on this, will enhance your spiritual well-being as well as your physical well-being. But let's move to the P of SPIRE for a second. So going to the gym, working out for an hour, great. You know, doing high-intensity interval training for 15 minutes, amazing.
Sounds horrible, honestly.
But you will become happier as a result subsequently. But what about taking 30 seconds or 45 seconds for a burst of energy, running on the spot or doing your push-ups or sit-ups? 45 seconds, that's all. Now we know, again, there is research on it, showing that if you do it 3 times during the day, you will actually have the equivalent of a workout. So it doesn't have to be all at once, meaning you can do it, you know, now for 45 seconds and then in 2 hours, another 45 seconds climbing up and down the stairs, which you can do in the office. You know, you don't sweat, you don't need to, you know, shower after. And then 5 hours later, you do it again when you get home. 45 seconds, minimum viable intervention. It's cumulative and it actually has the effect of psychological well-being impact, and it also impacts your, of course, physical well-being.
Now, as you're talking, I just want to remind the person listening that you're considering this inside the context of happiness being wholeness and well-being, meaning you are intentional about caring for your well-being. That these are all components of wholeness, and these 5 categories are the ones that matter the most. So what's another MVI for I?
Intellectual well-being. So intellectual well-being, which is after spiritual and physical, it's the third element. This is about, for example, learning something new, you know, and going online and looking at these, you know, short excerpts. Okay, I'm going to learn a new technique, or I'm going to learn a new idea, or I'm going to come up with a new question to ask my partner or my friend. So this is intellectual well-being, and it's incredible how these small changes, just asking a question or just learning something new, then trigger your curiosity muscles. You know, by the way, Mel, I forgot to say this, but curiosity, you know, the saying curiosity kills the cat?
Yeah.
It turns out that it's the opposite for human beings, meaning people who are curious, who ask many questions, who are lifelong learners, actually live longer.
Wow.
So look at all the benefits of being curious. So that's intellectual well-being. Then we have relational well-being, the R of SPIRE. You know, a hug, you know, a nice text you send your, your partner. Relational well-being, you know, really listen to someone, be present for them, even if it's for 2 minutes. The impact of it on the relationship, on them, on you is remarkable. And yes, of course, if you have 2-3 hours to spend together, even better, ideal, good enough to use those MVIs.
I'm hearing from so many people that listen to this podcast that are really struggling with loneliness. And if one aspect of the SPIRE model, one of the 5 elements of happiness, is your relationships and well-being in that area, what does the research say in terms of how many friends? Is it deep? Is it tons? Like for somebody that's just feeling isolated and lonely, or that sense like, where are all my friends, and feels disconnection, what does the research say in terms of happiness?
Number one predictor of happiness is quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. Now, we also know that the number one predictor of unhappiness in our world today is loneliness. And this was exacerbated as a result of COVID, of course, because what loneliness does is it very often gets us into this downward spiral where I feel lonely and I feel, incompetent in the social realm. And what we need to do in order to get out of it is get out of it. There has to be focused action and intention. In other words, single tasking rather than multitasking. Because one of the main causes of loneliness is not the fact that we're not around people. It's the fact that when we're around people, we're also doing 20 other things. Daniel Goleman calls our age the age of distraction.
Yes.
So, if I'm with friends, but at the same time, I'm texting and doing something else and we're not really together.
Right.
It's the example that I like. So imagine you're listening to your favorite piece of music. And can I share with you what mine is?
Absolutely.
All right. Don't tell anyone, though.
Drake?
No. Close. Whitney Houston, and I Will Always Love You.
Oh my God.
My favorite song of all time. So imagine you're listening to that or whatever your favorite is. And, you close your eyes, you focus, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. It's your favorite.
It's a 10.
And then you listen to your second most favorite. And, my second most favorite is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Pa-pa-pa-pam. You listen to that and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And, it's not quite Whitney Houston, but he's pretty good. It's a 9.5.
Yep.
And then for the perfect experience, you take these two pieces of music and you play them together.
At the same time?
At the same time. What do you get, 19.5? No, it's not a 10, not even a 5. It's cacophony, it's noise. And that's modern life for you. Because what we're doing is we're trying to pack, because of, FOMO, because, we're eager to experience things, we pack in many things. So while we're with friends, we're also, doing some work perhaps. And while we're with the, kids, we're also watching a movie. And you can't do it all. Well, you can do a lot, but you certainly can't enjoy it all. And much of our sense of loneliness comes because when we're with other people, we're not really with other people. And what we need to do is put time aside. And it doesn't have to be 7 hours, even if it's an hour twice a week, or that text that you commit yourself to mindfully. These small, committed, focused activities can get us out of the sense of loneliness or unhappiness. Beautiful.
Beautiful. What a beautiful metaphor. It makes so much sense.
And finally, emotional well-being. That's about, the gratitude journal. Take a minute to write 3 things that you're grateful for. Close your eyes and savor what you have right now. Or write a journal about what's hurting you for 2 minutes. There's research showing that even 2-minute journaling, whether it's about difficult experiences or about ecstatic experiences, 2 minutes actually make us happier and healthier. Better to write it in a journal or to talk about it than to just ruminate over it.
Why? Why is it better to write in a journal and talk about it?
So here I'm drawing on research by Sonia Lubimirsky, who's a professor at UC Riverside. And what she shows is that when we are dealing with painful emotions or difficult experiences, we can either talk about it, write about it, or think about it. People who think about it, it actually gets worse. We ruminate, we go down the rabbit hole, downward spiral. And we can stay there for hours or sometimes weeks.
Or decades in some people, right?
Exactly. Whereas if we write about it or talk about it, there's a much higher likelihood that we'll emerge stronger. Why? Because what we're doing when we're writing and talking about it, we're actually making sense of it. So often, and this is work on journaling, Jamie Pennybaker and others, showing that when we write about something, very often we reach a aha moment, or, oh, now I see what's happening, or now I see what I need to do. And then it becomes more manageable. It becomes more coherent, more clear. And then we're ready to move on. And we know what we ought to do. So writing and talking about it rather than ruminating about it is very important. And then, after we have written about, talked about it, just do it. What is it? It could be an MVI, a minimum viable intervention. It could be, go to the gym. Doing it could be, go out with friends, even if you don't really feel like it. But keep on experimenting with truths rather than sitting down and trying to figure out the meaning of life or the ultimate answer to the universe.
I have something to share that happened with my sister-in-law, business partner, and friend, Christine. She had been somebody that really loved going to church. And then, like many of us, life gets busy with your kids, especially if they're in these sports teams and everything else, and something happened at the church. And so they kind of stopped going. And for a number of years, she thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And recently, let's talk MVI, a minimum viable intervention. She just got up off her rear end. She didn't wait for her husband and sons to go with her. And she just, one Sunday, went back to one service. And I will tell you that there is something, if we go back to the rainbow analogy, and you think about happiness being an indirect thing in your life that you feel in multiple ways, that one small action of no longer thinking about it, but going back, it has created more. It's almost like if you think about a rainbow, there is a hue there, there's a vibrancy there. And I love this word wholeness because it is part of her well-being to have a spiritual practice. Yeah. And it does create a vibrancy and a wholeness in that area of her life. It is one simple change. It is an hour every week. It is not dependent on anybody else in her family doing it. And to me, that is a very clear example of what you're talking about in terms of how it relates to these 5 elements of happiness and how you can just in very small ways experience what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I love that story. And I love it because of what you brought up, saying that it's one small action. Experiment with these small truths.
I'm wondering, as one of the world's most respected and leading experts on happiness, what do you do every day to be happier?
Mm-hmm. I do the basics. I wake up in the morning and I do my meditation.
Now, do you lay in bed? Do you get up? No. How do you do your meditation?
I lay in bed. And again,
Is that technically like just sort of snoozing? Like, what are you doing? Like you literally are like, you wake up and then you meditate while you're lying there?
And then I meditate. And again, this is good for a morning. I'm a morning person. So when I wake up, I wake up. It's not, I won't fall asleep again. But for people for whom it's difficult to wake up in the morning, get out of bed, wash your face, do whatever you need to energize it, and then sit down if you need, or do walking meditation.
Right.
But meditation is where I start. And then I read. And I love reading in bed, and I read quality stuff. I don't look at the news. That's
You're not
very
looking
important.
At TMZ on your phone. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that yes, but not the other news. So I do quality stuff in the morning. Then I'm responsible for taking the kids to school.
I love that.
Yeah,
and I bet they love that too.
They do, and I do, and always, and we have a sort of a ritual around that, where we talk, and then they ask me, okay, Dad, one message for the day, and it could be something like, be generous, be kind, or appreciate, or whatever it is, and they go with it, and they also share it with their friends.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we have that, and then I go home and I work. Mornings are my productive hours, and then I do yoga in the afternoon. Almost every day, have lunch with my wife, and And then sometimes work in the afternoon, do sports. I do a lot of sports.
You still play squash?
I play squash. I didn't play squash for 25 years. And I always said, if one of my kids plays, then I'll take it up again. And our little one, our 14-year-old, plays squash. So I play with him.
I bet you're a monster on the pickleball court.
I've never played pickleball, but I want to.
Destroy it.
I want to. Actually, yeah. And so... yeah, and then, I love movies. I love, reading, hanging out with friends, family.
I want to reflect on something, because what you're describing sounds like a happy life. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you can probably hear in Tal's voice that he's smiling as he's reflecting on this. And it is true that so many of us make ourselves unhappy because we think that the answer to it is something out there, that national championship, the getting into the right school, the right grades, the right this, the right that. And what you just described is the little things you do every day that make you feel whole.
There's something very important, Mel, that I want to add. It may sound, fairy tale. Oh, he's always happy and always smiling. Far from it. I
asked your kids. They said, some days you're a real jerk.
No, just kidding. They don't say jerk, but they say, Daddy, chill.
Yeah, chill.
Chill. Yeah. And it's important to understand. Not every morning when I get up, I want to write. Some mornings I get up and I want to stay in bed and do nothing. What is most important is what we do rather than what we feel. I do what I do, whether it's the yoga, whether it's the writing, whether it's spending time with family and friends. I do it even if I don't feel like it.
I'm Mel Robbins. I'm a New York Times bestselling author and one of the world's leading experts on confidence and motivation. Ooh, what was that?